HD. News 9 Plus, download now.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's get you all the top national and international stories that we're tracking at this hour. Well, the Israel-Hamas war is now in its 41st day. Let's take a look at all the top developments. Fighting continues at al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Israeli tanks and soldiers are continuing to search the hospital compound. Israel's military has released what they call proof of Hamas weapons at the hospital. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council has adopted a resolution calling for humanitarian pauses in the fighting in Gaza. UN Human Rights Office has warned of fuel depletion in the Gaza Strip. Israel has asked some residents of Khan Yunis to evacuate. As per the official figures that were released by the Palestinian Health Ministry a couple of days ago, at least 11,500 Palestinians have been killed. 40% of them were children, and 1,200 Israelis were killed on the 7th of October during the terror attacks carried out by Hamas. A man was arrested for crashing a car into a barricade near the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. Israeli troops entered Gaza's biggest hospital and have been searching its rooms and basement amid global alarm over the fate of the thousands of Palestinian civilians who are still trapped inside. Take a look at this report.
Israel released a video set to show its troops entering Gaza's biggest hospital, al-Shifa, on Wednesday. It says Hamas fighters have the beating heart of their operations in a headquarters in tunnels beneath it, and that troops uncovered unspecified weapons and terror infrastructure inside the hospital compound after killing fighters in a clash outside. Hamas denies this. The Israeli army also said there had been no fighting and no friction with civilians, patients or staff. This video, released by the Gaza Health Ministry on Wednesday, but shot in previous days, is said to show the aftermath of a recent Israeli strike on the hospital. Medics are seen trying to evacuate patients from a ward hit by shelling. It also shows the premature babies that Gaza's health ministry now says are being transferred from their incubators to another area in the hospital that still had some electricity. Martin Griffiths is the UN aid chief.
I understand the Israelis' concern for trying to find the leadership of Hamas. That's not our problem. Our problem is protecting the people of Gaza from what's been visited upon them.
Gaza officials say many patients, including 3 newborn babies, died in recent days as a result of Israel's encirclement of the facility. Staff are without power to operate basic medical equipment. Dr. Ahmed El-Mokhalalati spoke to Reuters by phone from inside the hospital. Gunshots could be heard in the background. He said staff were hiding as fighting unfolded outside the hospital overnight and that the Israelis had targeted the hospital directly.
But again, it's totally a scary situation.
Complex and sensitive.
Israeli army spokesperson Daniel Hagari said the army has facilitated wide-scale evacuation of the hospital.
IDF forces are carrying out a precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area in the Shifa hospital.
Israel had given Hamas a 12-hour deadline to stop military activity in the hospital. It said, unfortunately, it did not. This video released by the Israeli army was said to show medical supplies being brought in for those inside. The United States said on Tuesday that its own intelligence supported Israel's conclusions about the presence of a Hamas headquarters at al-Shifa. Izzat el-Rashek, member of the Hamas political office and media officer, said in a video by the militant group that makes American President Biden a full participant of this occupation and this crime. Israel launched its campaign to annihilate Hamas after it rampaged through Israeli towns on October 7th. About 1,200 people were killed, according to Israel. Since then, Israel has put Gaza under siege. Gaza health officials say more than 11,000 Palestinians are confirmed killed.
Israeli troops say they found weapons, combat gear and technological equipment at the al-Shifa hospital in the Gaza Strip, and they are in fact continuing to search the complex. Here are more details.
At this stage, the forces are sweeping the area, scanning and locating weapons of war and terrorist tunnels. IDF forces continue to operate at this hour in a targeted manner in Shifa Hospital. We launched this operation last night on Shifa, a location that we knew from intelligence held terrorist infrastructure, and now we are deepening the operation. In the hospital, we found weapons, intelligence, military technology, and military equipment. Additionally, an operational command center and technological assets belonging to Hamas. The technology and the materials have been sent to intelligence for inspection and review. Our forces continue to operate inside the hospital in a targeted fashion based on our intelligence to uncover and eliminate terrorist activity in the hospital.
Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, the international spokesperson for the IDF, recently shared a video from inside al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. The footage reveals significant amounts of Hamas ammunition alongside other military supplies and intelligence documents. Notably, all CCTV cameras within the hospital were deliberately covered with black tape. The ammunition was found concealed behind MRI machines and in various chambers throughout the hospital.
Shalom everyone, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan from the IDF here. I am in the Shifa hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building. We are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing, of all of the evidence that we have found just now in this building of the Shifa hospital. So we're inside the MRI center of the Shifa hospital. Israeli troops breached here a few hours ago, and we have cleared the area, make sure that it's safe. And a few of the most interesting things that we have found totally confirm, without any doubt, that Hamas systematically uses hospitals in their military operations in violation of international law. And what we have found, I think, is only the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you a few examples. Security cameras have been obstructed. All of the security cameras are covered, and this isn't the only one. You'll see the rest of them here. Follow me as we go in, and we will see the MRI center and see the weapons that Hamas has hidden inside. This is where patients come in order to get MRI services. We'll proceed into a more secluded area. And the lighting here is out, so we're using flashlights. We're now, as you can see, in an MRI room. I don't know when this was used the last time. But it is definitely an MRI machine. And if you follow me behind the MRI machine, I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago. In military terms, this is a grab bag. Grab and go of a Hamas combatant, and if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you'll be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, of course uniform, and all of this was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine. On the other side, we found a backpack with what appears to be very important intelligence, including a laptop, and we'll show you that momentarily. Let's go see the next room. So we're still in the MRI center. The backpack was found in here, and it was also hidden behind the MRI machine. As you can see, the rest of the equipment here is proper hospital equipment, right? Bandages and medical gear. It seems as if there's no real shortage because there's a lot of equipment here, but we'll leave that for another discussion. Let's go see weapons and other prohibited items. As we walk through the main corridor here, our troops did a preliminary search of the area. We tried to uncover the cameras, but all of the cameras have been obstructed. You can see there's black tape covering it. And when our troops opened this closet here, which is in the main part of the clinic, this is what they found. These weapons have absolutely no business being inside a hospital. The only reason they're here is because Hamas put them here, because they use this place, like many other hospitals and ambulances and sensitive facilities inside the Gaza Strip, for their illicit military purposes. So there's Kalashnikov rifles here, even ammunition. And let's go see the next part of the of what we have here. Another MRI machine. Another MRI machine where behind it we also found contraband similar to what you saw in the other areas. And let's go see the last thing, which is more related to intelligence, which I think we will be able to extract quite a lot of interesting intelligence from. If you can see, follow me. Up here on top of a spare part of the MRI department, we found another grab bag. It's empty because we emptied it and cleared it so that we could use and see it. So this is where we found it, and here are the contents of the bag. The contents of the bag are full military kit for one Hamas terrorist. A live grenade, ammunition, fighting vest with insignia, boots, and of course uniforms, and last but not least, standard AK-47. Inside the hospital, hidden in a secluded area, take a look at this door here. Blast-proof door, which is part of the clinic and part of the infrastructure of the hospital. Everything else looks like a hospital, only this part doesn't. Last part. Now we will see something that our intel researchers are looking into. Hold on, before we go on, let's have a look at what we found inside the very same cabinet that houses medical equipment. You can see all kinds of standard military medical stuff. We found another go-to bag, this bag here. And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found, and this is the stuff that was in it. Now, there's insignia, military insignia, a knife. For those of you who read Arabic, you'll be able to understand what it says here. But it's Hamas, the military wing, Kataib al-Qassam, of course a vest with equipment, and as always an AK-47, standard gear, grab and go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital. And the last item, which I'm sure will be very interesting to analyze, is a laptop. We found it in the MRI room. This is how the laptop looks. I don't know who it belonged to, but now it is being analyzed by our intel people. Tactical radio communications, which we will analyze. Lots of disks, which will be analyzed. And a computer, which at first glance already provides a lot of incriminating.
Let's take a look at the weapons and intelligence equipment that the Israeli Defense Forces have recovered that they say were found hidden in the al-Shifa hospital. IDF troops found a number of Hamas weapons and combat gear, many of them hidden in duffel bags behind MRI machines. The security cameras in the hospital were covered with black tape. AK-47s, ammunition, grenades and vests were recovered. Tactical radio communication equipment and a laptop were also found. The IDF even found military kits that were packed with grenades, Hamas soldier uniforms, boots and AK-47s. The Israeli army released a video claiming to depict the delivery of aid to al-Shifa hospital, stating that it was part of their ongoing operation against Hamas. The hospital in Gaza City has been a primary target in the ground operation, with Israeli forces alleging that Hamas operates a key headquarters in tunnels beneath it, a claim denied by Hamas. Troops entered the hospital, conducting searches in rooms and the basement after days of siege, raising global concerns about the safety of trapped civilians. Israel asserted that its forces engaged in a confrontation with fighters outside the hospital, killed some and brought medical supplies for those inside. The Israeli army has released footage showing its soldiers carrying out military operations and dismantling Hamas centers and capabilities in Gaza's al-Shati area. Another video displayed Israeli tanks and armored vehicles during a military operation inside a refugee camp, cited by IDF as the central Hamas center. Strikes also targeted what Israel claimed were multiple Hamas locations. The Israeli police have said they have shot and neutralized a suspect in a shooting attack at the tunnels checkpoint between Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank city of Bethlehem, adding that large forces were deployed at the scene. Israel's ambulance service said its medics were treating 6 people who were wounded, including one in a critical condition, and were evacuated to hospitals. Following 18 months of steadily escalating violence in the West Bank, Israeli forces have clamped down further since the 7th October terror attacks, making hundreds of arrests and conducting regular raids that have resulted in clashes. The UN Security Council adopted a resolution calling for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors throughout the Gaza Strip for a sufficient number of days to enable the full, rapid, safe and unhindered humanitarian access. The resolution, drafted by Malta, received 12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions by the United Kingdom, the United States and Russia.
Yet sadly, this resolution falls on deaf ears when it comes to Hamas and other terrorist organizations. On the 7th of October, savage Hamas terrorists launched a barbaric invasion into Israel, murdering, raping, and brutalizing innocent civilians. Nearly 6 weeks have passed. This council has convened on the matter almost 10 times and still has not succeeded in condemning Hamas's October 7th massacre. The resolution focuses solely on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, yet makes no mention of what led up to this moment.
The Security Council should have called for a ceasefire a long time ago. It should have called for a ceasefire now. It should have heeded the call by the UN and every humanitarian organization on earth calling for a humanitarian ceasefire, including the Secretary General of the United Nations. It should have been convinced that there is no military solution, especially one that relies on the commission of atrocities, and it should have advanced political ones.
Ultimately, the United States could not vote yes on a text that did not condemn Hamas or reaffirm the right of all member states to protect their citizens from terrorist attacks. The Council repeatedly has made clear that we stand against all acts of terror. This horrific attack must be no exception. And the United States will continue to urge this Council to condemn Hamas's actions.
This draft resolution we have in front of us today seeks to offer hope in this dark hour. It aims to ensure a respite from the current nightmare in Gaza and give hope to the families of all victims. It focuses in particular on the plight of children trapped in the war enclave and of those being held hostage. Over the past week, we have held extensive consultations with Council members, interested parties, countries in the region, and humanitarian organizations. We did this in an effort to achieve a balanced and operational text.
US President Joe Biden has made it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that a two-state solution is the only answer to resolve the Israel-Palestine conflict and that occupying Gaza would be a big mistake. Biden further said he is doing everything in his power to secure the release of the hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza, but that does not mean sending in the US military.
I made it clear to the Israelis that to Bibi and to his war cabinet that I think the only ultimate answer here is a two-state solution that's real. We got to get to the point where there is an ability to be able to even talk without worrying about whether or not we're just dealing with, they're dealing with Hamas that's going to engage in the same activities they did over the past, on the 7th. So but I can't tell, I'm not a fortune teller, I can't tell you how long it's going to last. But I can tell you I don't think it ultimately ends until there's a two-state solution. I made it clear to the Israelis I think it's a big mistake for them to think they're going to occupy Gaza and maintain Gaza. I don't think that works.
Have you communicated to Prime Minister Netanyahu any sort of deadline or time frame for how long you are willing to support Israel in this operation? Are you comfortable with the operation going on indefinitely, and is there any deal underway to free hostages?
With regard to when is this going to stop, I think it's going to stop when when Hamas no longer maintains the capacity to murder and abuse and just do horrific things to the Israelis. And they still think that, at least as of this morning, they still thought they could. They've just been straight. And we, as I said, the thing that I find most assuring. You have a circumstance where the first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact, that's what's happened. Israel did not go in with large number of troops, did not raid, did not rush everything down. They've gone in, and they've gone in with their soldiers carrying weapons, their guns.
US public support for Israel's war against Hamas terrorists in Gaza is eroding, and most Americans think Israel should call a ceasefire to the conflict that has ballooned into a humanitarian crisis, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll. 32% of the respondents say the US should support Israel when asked what role the US should take in the fighting. That was down from 41% who said the US should back Israel in the poll that was conducted in the second week of October. Those saying that the US should be a neutral mediator, the number has risen to 39, according to this new poll, from 27% a month earlier. 4% of the respondents said the US should support Palestinians, and 15% said the US should not be involved at all. The drop in US support seen in the new poll among both Democrats and Republicans, and especially amongst older respondents, follows weeks of heavy Israeli bombardment and ground combat against Hamas in Gaza in retaliation for the 7th October rampage by the Islamist terror group in southern Israel that left 1,200 Israelis dead and 250 were taken hostage as well. Well, a video released by Gaza's health ministry on the 15th of November and shot at least a day earlier shows medics wheeling patients on stretchers through smoke-filled hallways at al-Shifa, Gaza's largest hospital. On Wednesday, Israeli troops went into the hospital, searching rooms in the basement, according to witnesses. The siege sparked global concern following Israel's claim of a deadly clash at the hospital gates.
The medical teams are taking care of the situation because of the heavy dust. They are suffocating from this dust debris caused by the shell that was fired on the specialities building. So it is a direct targeting of the specialities building. Patients are being evacuated, who were evacuated in the first place, from intensive care to the hallways. It is a very difficult and complicated situation. Patients are now being evacuated away from the dust and smoke that caused the suffocation of injured people. Patients are being evacuated with difficulty. Heavy dust is everywhere.
Qatari mediators aim to broker a deal between Hamas and Israel for a 3-day ceasefire. The proposal includes releasing 50 hostages from Gaza and some Palestinian women and children from Israeli jails. Negotiations are ongoing, and this deal would require Hamas to provide a list of the names of all the remaining hostages in Gaza. It would mark the biggest release of hostages held by Hamas since the terrorist group burst over the Gaza border, attacked southern Israel and took close to 250 hostages who are currently in the Gazan enclave. Reports say Hamas has agreed to the general outlines of this deal, but Israel hasn't, and the negotiations are therefore still underway. A man in his 50s was arrested after crashing a car into a barricade near the entrance of the Israeli embassy in Tokyo on Thursday, injuring one police officer. According to reports, the area was blocked off and a damaged black car was observed at the scene. Recent global pro-Palestinian demonstrations, including those in Tokyo, have protested Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip. A month ago, protesters faced off with the police outside the Israeli embassy in Tokyo amid the conflict sparked by Hamas terror attacks on southern Israel. Following Hamas's attacks on Israel on the 7th of October, incidents of anti-Semitism have risen in France, where a substantial Jewish and Muslim community lives together. However, an initiative in southern Paris seeks to alleviate tensions by fostering unity between the two communities. Here's a report.
These young people are learning to reassess some of their prejudices in a workshop organised by a group that includes Jews and Muslims and advocates for friendship between the communities. "We are more alike than it seems," reads the sticker on the van. As the participants are underage, we are not showing their faces.
How would you define discrimination?
To treat someone badly because of a supposed characteristic.
What does ageism mean?
To discriminate against someone because of their age. Our initiative was founded to fight against two forms of racism, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We raise awareness amongst young people in an indirect way. By speaking about discrimination to sensitize them, we make sure they don't fall into the trap of anti-Semitism.
Rabbi Serfati set up the initiative 20 years ago. Today's participants, some of them Muslims, others Christian, say such workshops have opened their eyes.
I always thought that Jewish people were keeping to themselves, also because I didn't know any Jews. I realized that was prejudice and that you shouldn't judge people without knowing them.
I now understand that just because some people in France from different religions aren't getting along right now, it doesn't mean we can't get along here.
In this district, people from different religions do indeed, literally, live side by side, with a synagogue, a church and a mosque right next to each other. The rabbi, imam and local Christian leaders regularly organize joint events. Right after the start of the current conflict between Israel and Hamas, they gathered to mourn the dead together. Their friendship runs deep.
It's only because of Rabbi Sarfati's help that we could open our mosque in this street 20 years ago. He called the mayor on our behalf and said, there is a building available here. The mayor asked him, are you not afraid of the Muslims? Mr. Sarfati said, no, on the contrary. We want them to be close to us so that we can be friends, neighbors and brothers.
The local Jewish, Muslim and Christian congregations have held together despite the current situation in the Middle East. But Rabbi Sarfati is deeply worried about the future.
We are wondering about our place in the world. The massive demonstrations in the Muslim world with people yelling, death to Jews, death to Israel, Israel assassin. They raise questions for humanity. Will humanity assume its responsibility for the minority of 20 million Jews or not?
He believes his community's example of religious coexistence can show the way so that people elsewhere can learn to share common ground.
In the other big story we're tracking, US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping have pledged to ease tensions between the two countries at what was their first in-person meeting in over a year. The discussions covered trade, climate, military actions and numerous contentious issues such as fentanyl production, conflicts in South China Sea, the Israel-Hamas war, the sensitive issue of Taiwan, the Russia-Ukraine war and alleged election interference. Biden emphasized the importance of competition, not escalating into conflict. Reports indicate the talks were direct with more extensive exchanges compared to their previous meeting. Biden is expected to request that China use its influence over Iran to try and prevent an escalation of violence in the Middle East in response to the Israel-Hamas war. The US President also brought up alleged Chinese operations to influence elections and human rights concerns. Both leaders were forthright in their conversation, with Xi Jinping urging the US to avoid suppressing or containing China. Biden and Xi also agreed to crack down on companies producing chemical precursors for fentanyl. An agreement has been arrived at, aiming at limiting manufacturing and export of fentanyl precursor from China to Mexico. Cooperation on fentanyl is entangled in geopolitical tensions, but the two leaders have now agreed to work on it together. Over 150 people die every day through synthetic opioids like fentanyl in the United States.
I'm pleased to announce that after many years of being on hold, we are restarting cooperation between the United States and PRC on counter-narcotics. In 2019, you may remember, China took action to greatly reduce the amount of fentanyl shipped directly from China to the United States. But in the years since that time, the challenge has evolved from finished fentanyl to fentanyl chemical ingredients and pill presses, which are being shipped without control. And by the way, some of these pills are being inserted in other drugs like cocaine. A lot of people are dying. More people in the United States between the ages of 18 and 49 die from fentanyl than from guns, car accidents, or any other cause, period. So today, with this new understanding, we're taking action to significantly reduce the flow of precursor chemicals and pill presses from China to the Western Hemisphere. It's going to save lives, and I appreciate President Xi's commitment on this issue. From China to the United States. But in the years since that time, the challenge has evolved from finished fentanyl to fentanyl chemical ingredients and pill presses, which are being shipped without control. We're reassuming military to military contacts, direct contacts. As a lot of you press know who follow this, that's been cut off, and it's been very worrisome. That's how accidents happen, misunderstandings. So we're back to direct, open, clear, direct communications on a direct basis. Vital miscalculations on either side can cause real trouble with a country like China or any other major country. And so I think we're made real progress there as well. And thirdly, we're going to get our experts together to discuss risk and safety issues associated with artificial intelligence. As many of you who travel with me around the world, almost everywhere I go, every major leader wants to talk about the impact of artificial intelligence. These are tangible steps in the right direction to determine what's useful and what's not useful, what's dangerous and what's acceptable. Moreover, there are evidence of cases that I've made all along. The United States will continue to compete vigorously with the PRC, but will manage that competition responsibly so it doesn't veer into conflict or accidental conflict. And where it's possible, where our interests coincide, we're going to work together like we did on fentanyl. That's what the world expects of us. The rest of the world expects, not just in people in China and the United States, but the rest of the world expects that of us. And that's what the United States is going to be doing.
On a question on whether Biden stuck to his previous statement on Xi Jinping being a dictator, the US president said, being the head of a communist state, Xi was indeed a dictator. The statement came just hours after the two leaders met and agreed to ease tensions.
Hamas has a command center under al-Shifa hospital.
No, I can't tell you. I won't tell you.
Do you feel absolutely confident based on what you know that
Yes.
that is the truth?
Yes.
And Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry has reacted, saying the statement is extremely wrong and irresponsible.
This kind of statement is extremely incorrect and irresponsible political manipulation, which China resolutely opposes. It needs to be pointed out that there are always some ill-intentioned individuals attempting to sow discord and damage Sino-US relations, but their attempts will not succeed.
All right, domestic news now. BJP President JP Nadda has released the party's Sankalp Patra for the upcoming assembly elections in Rajasthan. The former Chief Minister of the state, Vasundhara Raje, Union Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal were amongst those present at the event in Jaipur. The party's manifesto is claimed to be based on the suggestions of over 1 crore people in the state. The BJP says it's taken suggestions from people through its outreach programs like Akanksha Peti, emails and social media platforms.
हमारा मैनिफेस्टो 3 बातों पर केंद्रित है। सबसे पहले कि डेवलपमेंट और विकास का जो मूल प्रिंसिपल है वो है सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास, सबका प्रयास। सबको एक दृष्टि से देखना और उनका विकास करना। और दूसरा है गांव, गरीब, वंचित, पीड़ित, शोषित, अनुसूचित जाति, अनुसूचित जनजाति, महिला, युवा, किसान, इनको सशक्तिकरण करना, एम्पावरमेंट करना। ये 2 बातों को ध्यान में रख करके, और तीसरा है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर जोर देना। ये तीनों बातों को लेकर के हमारा मैनिफेस्टो आया है।
As Telangana gears up for polls on the 30th of November, State President G. Kishan Reddy led a motorcycle rally in the Sikandrabad constituency. At a public rally, Reddy predicted that Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao would lose from both his constituencies of Gajvel and Kamareddy. These are the 2 constituencies that the Chief Minister has chosen to contest from. He also alleged that both the BRS and the Congress are conspiring to defeat the BJP. Bangladesh is set to hold its general elections on the 7th of January. This has been declared by Chief Election Commissioner Qazi Habibul. The announcement was made amidst rising political tensions with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and its far-right allies such as Jamaat-e-Islami pushing for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation. They have advocated for a non-party interim government to oversee the elections. The ruling Awami League has rejected this demand, asserting that elections will proceed under Premier Hasina's leadership. Sheikh Hasina has also declined dialogue proposals from the US and other Western nations, branding the BNP a terrorist organization. Media reports have indicated that a nationwide crackdown resulting in the arrest of close to 8,000 opposition leaders and activists, including BNP Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir, have taken place in recent weeks. Bangladesh's main opposition party has alleged the government is exploiting the judicial system to suppress criticism, employing mass arrests, raids and politically biased court cases. The administration under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has refuted these claims as the elections approach. Take a look at this report.
31-year-old Amjad Hussain begins most days with a visit to his lawyer. The political worker of Bangladesh's main opposition group, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or BNP, is facing multiple court cases. Cases he claims are politically motivated. He has already been imprisoned 3 times during the last decade, according to him, on trumped-up charges. After discussing his options to prevent going to jail the 4th time, he heads to the Dhaka Magistrate Court. Here, Amjad and many other political activists are made to appear before a judge. A routine that the BNP workers say have taken over their lives, leaving them no time for political campaigning or to even earn livelihoods.
I have to be in court at least 3 to 4 times a week. I leave my home at 7 in the morning, and it takes me 3 hours navigating Dhaka's traffic to get to the court. After running around to the different courts all day, I'm done at about 6 p.m. And by the time I get back home, it is nearly 9 p.m. This leaves me with no time to make a living or spend time with my family. And this happens to me 3 to 4 times every week. What am I supposed to...
League of being behind the many thousands of court cases against their members. A political fight that BNP says is now being played out in the country's courts. As the election draws closer, BNP campaign workers gather to hold strategy meetings. The BNP is threatening to boycott the vote unless changes are made. Historically, elections were held under a neutral caretaker administration, but in 2011, Parliament under the ruling Awami League amended the law.
Perhaps neither side is willing to compromise, but if that's the case, then the situation is likely to grow more tense and perhaps more violent. In the end, it's the choice of the Bangladeshis whether a caretaker government is needed or not. But if elections proceed under the current election commission, then the government clearly has more work to do to convince skeptics that the election commission will operate in a nonpartisan manner.
But the Awami League say elections under its government will be free and fair. It also says the court cases are not politically motivated and rather accuses the BNP of political violence and human rights violations. As the accusations fly, many in Bangladesh believe the future of democracy in the country of 170 million people could be at stake.
Widespread flooding in northern and eastern France has led to thousands of people having to evacuate their waterlogged homes. Record rainfall has caused rivers to break their banks, forcing the government to declare an official state of emergency in hundreds of towns and villages. A €50 million emergency fund has been allocated to help local authorities deal with the crisis. Another €80 million have been allocated to help farmers in the worst affected areas. That's been announced by the Agriculture Minister. Parts of eastern and northern France are in a state of emergency following the devastating floods. Around 250 municipalities in northern France have been declared to be in a state of natural disaster following the massive flooding. Authorities say this is the first time that France has recorded such an accumulation over 26 consecutive days in all seasons. The ancient Vietnamese city of Hue, a World Heritage Site popular with tourists, was underwater after heavy rains flooded thousands of homes and blocked highways. More than 2,000 people have been evacuated in central Quang Tri province. Some parts of the national highway linking North and South Vietnam have been blocked by landslides. Marked by a rainy season between June and November, Vietnam is no stranger to harsh weather conditions. However, this year has been particularly devastating with natural disasters including floods and landslides. With that is a wrap on the show. Thanks for watching.